Barbados receives a multi-million-dollar loan from the Inter-American Development Bank. That's our top story in your Barbados Today evening news update for Tuesday, November 6. So glad you can join us. I'm Fernella Wedderburn. Government's efforts to turn the ailing Barbados economy received a major boost today. The Inter-American Development Bank has stamped its approval on a $100 million loan to support the Barbados Economic Recovery Transformation Program. The loan is to be dispersed within 1 year. The funds will be used to address structural weaknesses in the island's fiscal framework, restructuring and privatization of state-owned enterprises, and strengthening safety nets for the most vulnerable. In other news, Minister in the Ministry of Finance, Ryan Strawn, today sought to offer fresh assurance to retrenched public servants. He says there is no reason why they should not be offered credit from lending agencies. Strawn says with government set to provide 1/5 of its $400 million procurement budget to displace workers as contractors, there is unlikely to be any adverse risk to banks and other lenders.
And so to the extent that there are opportunities for those persons to engage in that as a response as a mitigation measure, then it means then that there's a soft landing for those persons. Now, as we were just talking about, certainly making it easier for businesses to be transacted, and given that we've given a commitment that we will not build any arrears during the adjustment period, it means that as these persons then either seek some level of financing, either through our recently launched trust loan program or any other financing from the financial institutions, that because of that procurement opportunity, that there's a clear match between the opportunities that are available to these persons, and so lending to these persons, given what we intend to do with respect to the procurement, should not be any particular adverse risk.
Central bankers in the Caribbean are being challenged to step up their game when it comes to translating research into workable programs that can help dig regional economies from their economic slump. Additionally, Minister in the Ministry of Finance, Ryan Strawn, said central bankers should use their research to assist private sector businesses and individuals in their planning. He made the comments in an address to the opening of the 5th TF Annual Monetary Studies Conference at the Hilton Barbados Resort today, hosted by the Central Bank of Barbados and the Caribbean Economic Research Team, under the theme Emerging Economic and Financial Issues in the 21st Century Caribbean Economies.
We must now reach out and challenge for those researchers across the region to be able to go beyond that which we've done before, and to literally seek out the opportunities, solve the many problems that exist in the region, but in a manner that is obviously strategic, that allows for a young economist like myself to come to conferences like these, present ideas that are disruptive, because it is that disruption, positive disruption, I should say, is what is going to create the opportunities for those of us in the region. And if as a government, and as governments across the region, we have our mandate, which is to improve the lives of our citizens, then we, as economists, as a profession, must also become disruptive in a positive way, which means engaging the various private sector agents in our respective jurisdictions.
At a time when hundreds of government workers are being sent home, some of the island's major charitable organizations are reporting an increase in the number of people knocking on their doors for help. Today, as Flow Barbados announced that 7 charitable organizations are set to benefit from a major cash injection of over $40,000 as part of the company's upcoming end-of-year celebrations, representatives of those charities who attended the launch at the company's Warren's corporate office welcomed the donation, which they said was critical in the current economic downturn. Divisional Business Manager at the Salvation Army, Sherma Evelyn, said that while the Army has worked with Flow and other businesses in the past, the funding being donated by the telecommunication provider will be going towards the 4,000 Christmas hampers the non-profit organization will be handing out to needy families this year.
We know that the need is even greater this year than last year. We have already seen it, and we are feeling it because we also have, we give food parcels as people who come. They have lost their jobs. There are no way to make ends meet. And we also give out food vouchers for back to school for our children. So,
under the theme of Our Community Matters, Barbados' leading telecommunications provider will gift the Salvation Army, the Thelma Vaughan Memorial Home, Cancer Support Services, and Jabez House with $5,000 each to help cover operational costs and specific projects, while the Barbados Cancer Society, HIV, Food Bank, and the Barbados Child Care Board are in line to benefit from the initiative. Shameful. That's our minister in the Ministry of Transport, Peter Phillips, describes a list of more than 30,000 applications for housing before the National Housing Corporation. Speaking in Parliament during debate on a resolution for the vesting of lands in Clubs St. Lucie, he insisted that the situation was unacceptable and pledged that government will fix the problem. He, however, noted that if the NHC is to step up to the plate and meet the demands of Barbadians for housing, then those who owe the NHC outstanding money must pay their debt.
Any government that has allowed that to happen should definitely have a failing grade. A failing grade as far as this housing situation is concerned. And I question in my mind, Mr. Deputy Speaker, why there was such haste in the first 5 years of the last administration to build units here, build units there. You talk about $5 per square foot lots and so on, and yet the need of the people were not met.
Opposition leader Bishop Joseph Atherley, however, raised concern that the NHC must get its priorities right and focus its attention on helping low-income earners to own homes rather than making more revenue. He made a case for the corporation to look after the plight of disadvantaged Barbadians.
Is the priority for the National Housing Corporation in this day property ownership for the disadvantaged class in Barbados, the most disadvantaged class in Barbados, or is it a question of revenue generation? If it is a question of revenue generation, then there is a bias, Mr. Speaker, against the impetus to provide for low-income housing in Barbados. One wonders if, because there's a misplaced priority, the evident outflow from that is that which we see, that low-cost housing for low-income groups in Barbados is not a reality.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
To the region now, the people of Antigua and Barbuda and Grenada are now awaiting the outcome of today's referendum after casting ballots to decide whether or not to replace the London-based Privy Council as the island's final court. In St. John, Prime Minister Gaston Brown confidently exercised his franchise, urging citizens to vote yes.
My vote is a public vote. It is known, so I just voted yes in favor of the transition to the Caribbean Court of Justice. It is a sensible thing to do. It is a patriotic thing to do. And I just executed my responsibility as a voter in this country to vote in favor of the transition to the Caribbean Court of Justice.
Meanwhile, it's the second time within a 2-year period that Grenadians are voting on the CCJ. Prime Minister Dr. Keith Mitchell maintains a yes vote would help to cement the island's political independence from Britain. However, the main opposition National Democratic Congress has been urging Grenadians to vote against the measure. And on the international scene, Americans cast votes today to decide whether Donald Trump's Republicans maintain their grip on the U.S. Congress or if Democrats will gain the power to slow the president's agenda after a decisive campaign marked by clashes over race, immigration, and trade. We have a full report from Reuters Television.
I, Donald John Trump.
Since the moment President Donald Trump took office, Democrats have been counting down to Tuesday's congressional elections, hoping a strong showing would give them the power to rein in Trump's agenda. Now they're favored to take back the House of Representatives. But in his 2 years in office, Trump has already checked off a big chunk of his to-do list.
Believe me.
From pulling the U.S. out of the Iran nuclear deal and the Paris Climate Accords, to overhauling NAFTA, enacting tax cuts, and seating 2 conservatives on the Supreme Court, none of which sits well with Democrats. And while Democrats may soon rule the House, Republicans are expected to keep their hold on the Senate. Reporter Jim Oliphant says that means Trump's early accomplishments are here to stay.
And that's news and sports. But for the very latest, visit our website at www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, and like us on Facebook, and sign up for our breaking news alerts via WhatsApp. We're also on Izumi Media and bus terminals, as well as screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. And you can also hear us on Mix 96.9 FM. I'm Fernella Wedderburn. Good evening.